Hello everyone and welcome back to the Winning Agenda. My name's Jesse Muirman Marshall. Today we've got a really interesting dive into the Sorcery Online League Championship that's taking place at the moment throughout January 2024. It's been put on by Ira, so shout out to Ira Faye as part of the Sorcery team, and to Eric and all the other people who've supported and provided prizes for the league. What we're going to do today is take a dive into the metagame, have a look at what avatars are being played, what cards are being played the most, and hopefully give you a few tools and a few thoughts to inspire your deck building at home. Let's get into it. So we'll start off with the avatars. This is the total count of the avatars across the, 47 or so players who are participating in the league championship. And this is a mix of players who have played throughout the multiple seasons of the league so far and honed their skills in the metagame, and a range of new players, which is fantastic to see, who've dived in for the end of season championship or the end of year championship, even though they haven't played any of the league seasons so far, just because they can't wait to get straight into Sorcery, which is really wonderful. So we've got a mix of really seasoned players and newer players, I guess, is one thing I want to say about this data. But this is at least will give you an indication of across that broad card pool, what kinds of things people are playing. So Death Speaker at the top, we've got 8, Battle Mage 8, Avatar of Earth, Enchantress and Pathfinder, 6 players are piloting those, 5 players piloting Sorcerer, 2 players on Avatar of Air, 3 players on Seer, 2 on Elementalist, and Avatar of Fire and Water, only 1 player each for those. So a pretty good spread really. You're seeing basically all of the avatars in the game have at least 1 player piloting them, even poor old Avatar of Fire and Avatar of Water. We aren't using any of the beta avatars. There's no Wave Shaper, Spark Mage, Geomancer, or Flamecaller, but that is the full gamut of available avatars being used from the alpha set, which is really great to see. In terms of the most played cards, this is really interesting to me. So this is the most played cards by number of cards in deck. Obviously, ordinary cards have a greater likelihood of being the highest played card by number because you can play 4 of them in your deck versus only 1 unique. But it's interesting to see some exceptionals, mainly the dual sites. We've got Ruins, Windmill, and Lighthouse on the list as some of the most played exceptionals. And then also Root Spider and Divine Healing. So Divine Healing there, a really interesting one to see as the most played non-minion spell in the league championship this year. Root Spider, the most played exceptional minion, which also perhaps you would have expected. I think anyone who's played multiple games of Constructed, particularly in a competitive setting, knows how powerful Root Spider can be and how hard it can be for your opponent to interact with. So perhaps not unexpected, but still interesting nonetheless. What really stands out to me on this is Blink. I did not expect that Blink would be the most played card by number. I expected Grapple Shot to be up there, absolutely. Expected Common Sense to be up there. Apprentice Wizard is good, but perhaps not good in as many different decks. It's great in the Death Speaker deck, but not so good in some of the other decks. Blink, yeah, universally useful in any deck that's playing or splashing air, whether it's minion-based or not. I guess it's still good in Avatar-related decks. Grapple Shot is as well, which is probably why the 2 of them are up there. They've got that really wide spectrum of playability. And something like Lightning Bolt, I think, is still on the list. People probably on average play fewer copies. So you might see once we look at the percentage of decks playing at least 1 copy, some of the variants and the ranges here start to tighten up and some things will leapfrog each other. So we started off with, we've got down to 41 there at the bottom. The first elite is Infiltrate. Yeah, absolutely would have expected Infiltrate to be up there as one of the most powerful elites in the metagame. And if we start scrolling down the list, Dapral Vampire, another really powerful exceptional minion, on there equal with Infiltrate at 41 copies being played. And then as we scroll down, the first unique, the most played unique by copies in the league is Philosopher's Stone, 29 decks playing that. 25 copies of Mirror Realm, 24 copies of Amethyst Core. So they are the 3 most played uniques in the League Season 1 Championship. We'll see whether that affects their value as time goes on. I think that's probably already reflected in these 3 cards. The Stone, the Core, And Mirror Realm is one of the sites that's attracting the highest price out there on the secondary market from what I've seen so far. Very well reflected in this data that we're seeing from the League Championship as well. In terms of elites that are seeing a lot of play, we had Infiltrate on that previous page. Earthquake, obviously very playable, very powerful. Observatory, Grandmaster Wizard, and Chaos Twister, all very playable and powerful elites as well. Observatory, probably one I didn't expect to see quite so high up there. It's an effect that I found a little bit harder to use, but I guess if decks are leaning particularly heavily into air, then Observatory can be a really good one because the opportunity cost is not particularly high and the number of other air site options out there is not huge. Some other things that are interesting on the list, we've got the rest of the dual sites there, Oasis and Step. We've got Disenchant as a really highly played ordinary. Firebolts with 37 copies being played is pretty massive as both a burn and removal spell. Pudge Butcher clocking in with 29 copies, one of the most played exceptional minions in the game. And then Holy Ground is another one of the healing spells, both Divine Healing and Holy Ground, Healing Spell and Healing Sight respectively, seeing quite a lot of play, which is really interesting to see. Sacred Scarab's also clocking in there with 26 copies is very strong and very powerful as a little 2-cost 1-power minion that can. As we scroll further down the list as most played by number, you can see some of the further uniques. I mostly included this just so you can see some other uniques that sneak onto the list here. Pillar of Xeros, 20 copies of Pillar of Xeros played, very good against Death Speaker, even good in Death Speaker. I play a copy in my Death Speaker list, both for the mirror match, but also because sometimes getting some life at the cost of losing things from your cemetery can be worthwhile if it helps you avoid Death's Door for a turn or two in the mid-game. Ruby Core, River of Flame, and Onyx Core, all really powerful uniques as well, making it onto the list and showing that the cores really are pulling their weight in terms of competitive play. So the most played by percentage of decks that are playing at least one copy, Dark Tower, the highest played card by percentage of decks. And really, I mean, that reflects the element breakdown in Alpha is heavily biased towards air and earth in particular, but Dark Tower, even decks that are only barely splashing earth are going to play at least one copy of most of the towers, which is why the 3 towers there have the most play by named card, because I guess if you're splashing for a couple of villages, you might choose between any of the 3 villages and it doesn't really make a difference, whereas if you're splashing for 3 air sites, you're always going to be playing the 3 different ones. So Dark Tower, Gothic Tower, Lone Tower probably getting a bit of an unfair boost there, but they're the top 3. Then by percentage of decks, Blink again clocks in at number 1. So that's astonishing. Blink is both the most played card by number of copies in the league and also the most played card by percentage of decks playing at least one copy. Who would have seen that coming? Philosopher's Stone number 2. So it jumps up significantly from where it was on the number of copies played, because obviously as a unique, it's much more limited in how many people can play, but it's up there as really number 2 in terms of spells at 63% of decks playing at least one copy. Mirror Realm in there again at 54%, and Amethyst Core. So that trio of the most played uniques by number, obviously replicated in most played by percentage of decks as well, because it's actually going to be identical for unique cards in terms of ordering. Disenchant, though, really climbing up the rankings in terms of non-unique cards at the percentage of decks playing it, 48% playing Disenchant, Grapple Shot, Lightning Bolt. So 3 really key ordinary spells in the metagame. And that's what I was talking about a little bit before with when you start seeing the percentage of decks playing things, it does flatten it a little bit in terms of the gap between some of these spells that you want to play 4 of or 3 of, things like Blink and Grapple Shot, and some things that you might only want to play 1 of, like Disenchant and Lightning Bolt, but this still shows you how prevalent Disenchant and Lightning Bolt are across the spread of decks in the metagame. So they're equally prevalent with Grapple Shot in terms of number of people who are at least picking up 1 copy and putting them in their deck. Both fulfilling really important roles in the metagame. Disenchant taking out potentially multiple enemy artifacts or auras on one site is a really powerful sort of 2, 3, 4 for 1 sometimes that you can get, as well as disabling really key elements of some people's mana acceleration if you manage to hit all the mana rocks that their avatar is carrying with a single disenchant. Lightning Bolt similarly fulfilling a really important role in helping people to finish the game when the enemy is at death's door. Bury as one of the really common removal spells that is being played. Common Sense also, a very, very powerful tutor, getting any ordinary card from your deck, which allows you to play one copy of things like Disenchant and Lightning Bolt and Grapple Shot and these really powerful ordinaries and still feel like you're seeing them with some level of consistency as well. Infiltrate clocking in, still 46% of decks playing at least one copy. That's huge. Nearly half of decks playing this fire spell when fire is probably the third most played element by number of cards. And you can see, I mean, it's the top fire spell there, I think, which is pretty massive for an elite and for something like Infiltrate as a removal spell. So definitely slotting in on the splash. It's one threshold, it's easy to splash, and it's got a really powerful, unique effect. Windmill and Ruins as two of the dual sites making it onto this list right at the top of the most played by percentage. Divine Healing again, really widely played, at least one copy in 43% of decks, or sideboards I should say. And Pillar of Xeros to round it out, almost half of decks playing at least one copy of Pillar of Xeros. So I hope you enjoyed that little snapshot of the League Championship metagame. I thought it was really interesting seeing things like Blink, Philosopher's Stone, obviously right up there in most played percentage, but things like Grapple Shot, Infiltrate, Lightning Bolt, Disenchant, it really just proves how powerful a lot of these staples are and how the metagame has really evolved to hone in on some of the best cards. But also great to see on the most played by number, some things like Wildfire, Thunderstorm, a range of different auras and other effects that I might not have expected to be there. And some old hands like Dapperel Vampire still getting in there despite perhaps falling out of favor a little bit with some people in the metagame. But it was also really good to see that every single avatar that was able to be used had been used by at least one player in the league, and that there was a really good spread. We didn't have like 40% of the field being one particular avatar. The top two, Battle Mage and Death Speaker, were there on 8, and then you had a number of others on 6, 5, 4, so it wasn't like there was a massive gap and concentration of the metagame around 1 or 2 decks. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. If you do want to support the channel, it'd be great to have your support as a member. It's only a couple of dollars per month and it helps keep the lights on and keep the videos flowing. Thanks to all our existing members. We've got our monthly member giveaway and I think people have been enjoying that. And massive thanks to Eric, Chase, Ira, Simon, all the rest of the Sorcery team, but in this video in particular Ira, for his tireless efforts in putting on the league and making the league a reality for so many of us players throughout the past couple of years, both before we had physical cards and even now once we have them, so that we can keep up our little metagame, keep testing our decks against each other and keep making friends along the way. So thanks Ira, thanks everyone who's a part of it, thank all of you for watching and hope you're enjoying your sorcery journey and that today's video has given you a bit of inspiration for building your own decks as well. Take care.